Imagine being wrongfully accused of unaliving your son, and when your case was featured on Unsolved Mysteries, it proved that Patricia Stallings lived in Jefferson County, Missouri, and was a convenience store clerk in the mid-1980s. David Stallings frequently came into her store, and they began to date in 1986. They got married in 1988. Their first son, Ryan, was born in April 1989. Patricia took Ryan to Cardinal Glennon Children's Hospital in early July 1989. He was experiencing vomiting and difficulty breathing, and he was admitted to the pediatric intensive care unit. Noting a high level of what they then believed to be ethylene glycol in the baby's blood, physicians suspected that the boy had been poisoned with antifreeze. The infant was placed in protective custody. On August 31st of that year, Stallings was allowed a short visit with her son. Ryan's illness seemed to recur for days after the visit, and Stallings was arrested on assault charges on September 5th. Ryan was treated for ethylene glycol poisoning but died 2 days later. The charges were revised to first-degree unaliving. While she was in jail awaiting trial, Stallings gave birth to another son, David Jr., on February 17, 1990. He was placed in foster care, but in March, he developed similar symptoms as those that had affected Ryan. Despite having no contact with Stallings, he was diagnosed with methylmalonic acidemia MMA, a genetic condition in which the body produces propionic acid, a compound that differs from ethylene glycol by one carbon atom. David Jr. recovered and was returned to foster care. During the investigation and ensuing trial, Stallings' defense attorney wanted to introduce the theory that Ryan had died of MMA, but the prosecutor, George B. McElroy, considered the siblings' diagnosis irrelevant to Ryan's death, and the judge, Gary Kramer, would not allow him to advance the theory without any evidence that Ryan was actually affected by MMA. Stallings wanted her attorney to call character witnesses to testify on her behalf, but he did not do so. She was convicted of first-degree unaliving and given a life sentence. In May 1990, defense attorney Eric Rathbone obtained copies of notes determined to have been written by Assistant Prosecutor John S. Applebaum. The notes indicated that the doctor who pronounced Ryan dead had considered the possibility of an MMA diagnosis, but also that he had not tested Ryan for it at the time. After the discovery of the note, prosecutors said that they believed that there were important differences between ethylene glycol and propylene glycol, and they said that even if Ryan had had MMA, they thought that he had also been poisoned. The Stallings case was featured on the Unsolved Mysteries television program, and biochemist William Sly of St. Louis University saw the episode. He agreed to test Ryan's blood and gave it to James Shoemaker, MD, Ph.D., director of the metabolic screening lab at St. Louis University. Shoemaker immediately confirmed that Ryan had MMA. However, ethylene glycol is not a human metabolite. Even in cases of MMA, and Stallings went to trial with no explanation linking MMA to ethylene glycol. Much later, after the case was featured on Unsolved Mysteries, Shoemaker asked prosecutor George McElroy for the methods that had been used to measure ethylene glycol in Ryan's blood, and McElroy supplied that information. When the method was used on blood from Ryan and David Jr., it was seen that propionic acid, which is produced in MMA, caused a result that careless observers might mistake for ethylene glycol. Shoemaker then sent samples of propionate spike blood to several laboratories, who tested it with the same methods used in the Stallings case. Some of the laboratories came to the incorrect conclusion that the blood reflected ethylene glycol poisoning. At Sly's and Shoemaker's request, Piero Rinaldo of Yale University also looked at the case and concluded that Ryan had died of MMA. His testimony helped to convince McElroy that Ryan might not have been poisoned. In July 1991, Stallings was released from jail pending a new trial. She was placed on house arrest. In September 1991, prosecutors apologized to Stallings and dropped the case against her. Stallings said that she lost a lot of weight due to the stress of being in prison. She said that her Buddhist faith helped to keep her strong during that time. Stallings won a settlement against Cardinal Glennon Children's Hospital and the laboratory that tested Ryan's blood. She later said that the perception of her case may have been influenced by the case of Paula Sims, which had unfolded around the same time. In that case, a mother had been tried and convicted of unaliving her two daughters, and there was considerable public outcry over the unalivings. In 1994, McElroy ran for re-election as Jefferson County prosecutor, and Stallings donated $10,000 to his opponent, Robert Wilkins. Wilkins won the race. When McElroy offered to show Wilkins his information on the Stallings case, Stallings found out and asked a court to have her arrest record expunged. Some of the information was ordered to be expunged, but a judge said that Missouri law mandated that prosecutors confidentially maintain some of the information related to felony arrest. The Stallings case continues to be cited as an extreme case of a metabolic disorder that mimics a criminal act. Thank you for watching. For more true crime stories, follow my co-host Child Case Podcast with Sylvia Pradia, where she covers child abuse cases.